Welcome, everyone. You are joining me, Laureen Quick, your host, for another episode of Unscripted and Unstoppable. This podcast is a space for women 50 years and older who are navigating identity shifts, relationships, reinvention, and the quiet thresholds that shape who we are becoming. Today's conversation is about one of those threshold moments, one that isn't talked about honestly nearly enough. And that is when a baby is born, a mother is born, and a father is born. And quietly, sometimes without language, a grandmother is born too. For many women in this stage of life, this moment carries great joy, anticipation, and deep, deep love. But it can also carry complexity. You might ask yourself, how do I be present without taking over? How do I support my adult daughter or daughter-in-law when her choices differ from what I might choose? What exactly is my role in perhaps the birthing room, but even beyond? Grandmotherhood at birth is not simply about proximity, it is about presence, it is about steadiness, it is about honoring autonomy among your adult children and their family while still offering your love. Today, I am joined by birth doula and childhood educator, Susan Finazzo. Susan has supported families through some of the most intimate and vulnerable moments of their lives as families bring into the world another life. She brings into that place, that space, a grounded, evidence-based, and deeply relational approach to birth. And that approach centers on communication, respect, and non-judgment support. In this conversation, we are going to explore what it means for grandmothers to step into this moment with humility and grace and strength, not as a director, not as a rescuer, but as a steady witness. This is not a how-to session, it is an orientation. If you are preparing to become a grandmother or are already navigating that role, I hope this conversation will give you reassurance, language, and a deeper sense of your place in this unfolding as your family grows. Susan, welcome. Let's just jump right in, and I'll start with my first question.
All right.
From your perspective as a birth doula, how does the presence of a grandmother shape the emotional environment around birth, for better or for worse?
So I think that a grandmother definitely brings history, lived experience, and deep love into the room when she's there. We're talking about during the birth itself.
Mhm.
And I have had many experiences where the grandmother was in the room as a doula. And a grandmother's presence can either be a soft place to land or it could be a lot of pressure. It really
Mhm.
depends on what she's carrying with her when she comes into the room. So I've seen it play out very differently from family to family. And I think that anxiety and strong opinions can sometimes take over the room. And so I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought already there. Um,
You're okay.
um,
We
yeah,
we can take
I
we
lost
can
my
take
train
over
there.
that room, or we have the option of maybe being that silent witness.
Right. So anxiety and strong opinions can take over the worm, making it harder for mom to stay connected to what's happening. And so the other option is when mom comes in quietly holding space, grandma comes in offering reassurance, um, and offers that grounding presence, like you were saying.
Hmm.
As a big difference in the shift in the energy of the room, depending on what the grandmama is carrying when she comes in.
I would imagine. And so being very intentional about who we're going to be in that space is really important if we want to support our daughter or daughter-in-law or the whole family, actually. You know, as you're talking, I started thinking about my own mother. She was not present at my first daughter's birth because we lived in different states and my daughter came early. But
Okay.
she was here when my second daughter was born. And so she came into the maternity room with me, the birthing room with me and my husband. And about, I would say, a third of the way in, she had to excuse herself. She left. And later she told me that it was because it was unbelievably difficult for her to watch me go through the contractions and experience
Okay.
so much pain. And she wanted to yell and scream at the doctors and the nurses because she, of course, did not think they were helping me enough. So
I got it.
she knew enough to leave. And then, of course, she came right back in once the baby was born, and she told me all of this. So I didn't like wonder if she was like shocked and like scared or what was going on. She communicated with open honesty about that whole experience. So she
Right.
did add to the experience in that situation. But then for myself, with my daughter, my oldest daughter has had a child, and like I mentioned earlier to you, she is expecting again in May. Um, in that
Okay.
situation, I'm not invited into the birthing room. It really is a time for her and her husband.
Hmm.
So that might explain a little bit why I'm kind of excited about this conversation, just to begin to understand how mothers of daughters or daughter-in-laws who are giving birth, this is a really big event for us. And we really do want to make a positive contribution to the moment, but we don't always know how to do that. So, this is going to be an incredible conversation for me to listen to over and over again every time one of my daughters decides to have a child.
I
And
would have a child, yes.
yes, so it was very good. Um, so many women, like my mother, like me, we bring strong memories of our own birthing experiences into this moment. How can grandmothers or potential grandmothers notice when those memories are informing support and helping versus trying to quietly just take over and tell everyone how it should be?
Right. An important question. One of the things that as a grandparent in that spot we can do is to remember to ask the question of where where is this coming from? Is it coming from my story, or is it coming from what's happening right now in the moment? So it's a helpful practice to pause and ask that question before responding in that moment, especially in the birthing room if you're invited into the birthing room. I've had, you know, the birthing person can have so many different um, concerns. Some definitely want their mom to be there. Some are like they only want their partners to be there. It's such a personal and individual experience that I know even as a grandmother, we sometimes take it personally, and we have to remember that it's not our experience to take personally. Our job is to be that support person in the background who encourages and is that cheerleader really for our daughter or our daughter-in-law while she's giving birth. I've had I've had clients, as a doula, I've had clients um, ask me to explain to their mom why they chose to hire a doula instead of having their mom.
Hmm.
And I've had clients, where, mom and doula have both been in the picture. Um, I, I, for myself as a grandma, is in a unique position. When my daughter-in-law had my grandchildren, I wasn't invited into the birth space. Nobody was invited into the birth space. It was just my son and my daughter-in-law for both births. But this when she had her second child, she was like, I don't know why we didn't have you here. Just didn't even think about it. Um, but they wanted to make sure that we were there for the second one. No, we weren't there for the birth because they wanted to just be, and that's perfectly fine. That was what they wanted, and we all respected that. Her mom wasn't there, and even if she wanted her mom to be there, that's her mom.
Hmm.
It's a totally different dynamic. But I got to get the experience of being a postpartum doula with my second granddaughter when she was born, because I had a 2-year old, a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and we had a newborn, and we were there in the home, so I got to stay with my 2.5-year-old granddaughter for the birth. So we got to spend time with her, and I got to play a different role in supporting my daughter-in-law by being there very much in the situation. When she came home with the baby, I was able to offer assistance as I was observing the things that she needed. So I didn't just jump up and automatically do, but I was able to see where she needed, and I encouraged her to ask me for the support that she needed. So don't be afraid to ask me to, run a load of laundry, or to catch to do the dishes that are sitting in the sink, or, that's why I'm here. I'm here to be a support for you during this time period.
Hmm.
And it was
So,
it was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was just
so what I'm learning from this conversation so far is that, whether we're in the birthing room or not, there is a window of time when we get exposed to the new child. And
absolutely.
this moment, this time, whether it's the birthing room or whether it goes beyond the birthing room into the first few weeks after the baby's born, or even the first few months after the baby's born, that initial connection lays a foundation for the relationship that you will have for the rest of your life with your daughter, daughter-in-law, son, son-in-law, and even your grandchildren.
Absolutely.
And so this is not a moment to wing it. This is not a moment to just take lightly and think it will all work itself out, especially if they listen to me. And to step back and to get really clear about who we want to be in this relationship that is evolving, right? And also, how do we want to come across in terms of
Exactly.
our style of communication and the way that we support and assist the family as they need us to.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a powerful moment in our lives, and we don't, and to me, I don't want to blow it. It's so important, right? I really want to be ready and prepared in a way that I know both my daughters, my youngest has not given birth or had a child yet, and may not, but if she does, I want to make sure that I am laying a strong foundation for the relationship I want with my daughter and her child, my son and his child for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
a powerful moment. So that leads me to ask, what does a supportive presence actually look like when your daughter or daughter-in-law want maybe something different than what you might have chosen for yourself?
So I think that this is sometimes a place where we get stuck as parents or as a parent, because our role starts as a parent of, it's our child that's becoming a parent, right? So there's a lot in there. It's not just, oh, we're going to be becoming a grandparent. We still have our parental roles that are in play as well.
Mhm.
So a supportive present doesn't necessarily mean that we agree. We don't have to agree with the choices that they're making to support the choices that they're making. I think that's really important. Staying emotionally connected even when the choices feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable to you, and making making a very clear, you know, understanding that it's okay if she does things differently than you did them.
Mhm. And I would think having a lot of curiosity would be really helpful.
And a strong sense of curiosity is amazing. And one of the things as a childbirth educator that I always encourage my clients to is to invite whoever they plan on having in the delivery room with them to
Uh-huh.
join them for their childbirth classes.
Hmm.
So if you're bringing grandma into the birthing room, I really think I want her in my class, because I want to, by the time we're done with our 6.5 hours of classroom time, after the classroom time, I also do a mock Labor Day where we spend about an hour and a half actually working with mom and getting her into positions using different techniques to see what comfort works for her and what comforts won't work for her before she goes into labor. When grandma is there, we can assign her role way ahead of the day we show up in that birthing room.
Okay. So if you're able to attend the classes in advance, that's great. But if you're not, at least at the very minimum, one conversation where we sit down and we talk about everybody's role in the birthing room, but even beyond the birthing room, right?
And
Because,
even beyond the birthing room.
yeah,
Yes.
because this relationship I mean, when I first had my grandson come into my life, I had no idea what all that meant. And
Right.
it has been he has been an amazing source of love for me. But it has also been a bit of a roller coaster around negotiating a role in terms of what they need and want for support, but also then what I am able to give in support.
Absolutely.
And then also managing the other adults that are in this dynamic as well. If in my case, we have a mother-in-law, and we have aunts, and we have nieces, and we have all these other people who also want to play a role, and it can get confusing and needing to be sorted. Far better to sort from the beginning, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Communication is key. I mean, just like any relationship, right? Communication is so important. And as long as the parents and the grandparent or grandparents, because there's usually more than one grandparent involved, um, are open to that communication, you
Hmm.
know, there are times where the dynamics can be sticky. I've had, like I said, I've had moms. I've been asked as the doula to be the bad guy and tell mom that she can't come into the room
Hmm.
at the moment in time, rather than that had been addressed ahead of time and grandma already knows her role. So it's always better to have those conversations ahead of time if possible.
Hmm.
Sometimes feelings get hurt because we just have so much love and we want to give that love, but it's never coming from a bad place. It's always coming from a good place. And we have to remember that it's not our story.
Yep. Yes. That is one of the things about getting older that I have learned around family. When my two daughters and my husband passed when they were in high school. And so we've kind of been this little unit that in my
Right.
head, I always just thought it's the three of us. And then as they've married, as the grandchildren have come, the whole family concept has expanded greatly.
Yeah.
And sometimes with that, I had resistance.
Sure.
And I had to learn to work through, and I still do work through what is my resistance about, because I believe all about expansion. So why wouldn't I not embrace that? And I'm learning about myself as we go through this process. And that's why in some ways I think this is quite an adventure for all of
Yeah.
us, right? It's a catalyst for incredible growth if we are open to that happening in our lives. Yeah.
Yes. And that's very, very keen to say that, we have to be open. And
Hmm.
there can be a lot of, a lot of problems that occur when we have people that are closed-minded coming into situations when we're growing and expanding a family.
Yep.
Yep.
It's fascinating to me. This is an incredible process. So the other element that we haven't even talked about yet, but really becomes important is how does the mother, the grandmother, I should say, learn to navigate the dynamics between themselves and the daughter giving birth and the father, the new father? How does that relationship work in the context of the room, the birthing room, but then also just in terms of the family?
Again, I think this is really where preparation comes in.
Uh-huh.
The earlier we start educating the parents to be, the more competent they are in their roles. And I think as long as we're including the grandparents who are very much a part of it, if they're going to be included, that they're a part of that preparation as well.
It's funny because when I was born, the thought of my father being in the birthing room would have been insane. Right.
Oh,
That
right.
just that was like the men were supposed to get a cigar and go out and smoke somewhere or do something else, go hunting or something, right?
Right.
And so then as an adult woman now with daughters, I have two daughters and their husbands, their spouses, it's not okay to push the men out, to say,
It
oh,
is.
this is women's work. Let us take care of this. Men also want a very today, men really want an active role in the raising of their children and most importantly, in the birth of their child. So I think from a woman my age looking at the situation, I always need to remember and to highly respect that the father is primary in this conversation, in this relationship, in this dynamic that I'm now a part of. Right?
Yes, very much so. And it is a very different atmosphere than the atmosphere was 40, 50 years ago. Um, Back when we first medicalized birth, that was how we did things. It was turned into a clinical medical situation, and we've evolved or devolved, I guess, back into, birth being a more natural, even though most births still occur in a hospital setting. The goal is always for that birth to be as close to a natural birth with the least amount of medical intervention as possible. And I do have to say, even in the hospital setting, the care providers within the hospital have that same goal in mind. It is
Mhm.
never their intention to push medical care on you if you're not, in need. But as a grandparent, in the world today, we have to be more mindful of our children are a unit, like you're saying. I was a single mom for 10 years. I was the same way. My kids, we were a unit. It was us against the world. And so and when they get partners, it's a little bit of a loss for us too. So it's a gain and a loss, that we can juxtapose, the joy and the grief, right next to each other when that happens. But I think the important thing is that as a mother, that we are honoring, allowing our children to make their choices, and that it doesn't matter whether we agree with them or not. We trust them that they're making the right decision for them.
Yes. And I mean, for me, I can always think, well, how would I have felt if my mother had come in and tried to tell me how to birth and raise my children? I would have
Exactly.
been very frustrated, angry, and maybe not included her so much in,
Right.
how we developed and evolved as a family because it was like, I'm not going to fight about this. You're just not going to be a part of it. So
Yeah.
you know, and my mother was not like that, but had she been, it would have been that way. So,
Exactly.
and it's not, and that's not to mean you should silence yourself when you do see something you have a concern about, or a question about, or want to offer a piece of advice or information. However, you need to be very thoughtful about how you do that,
That's
and how
correct.
often you do that, right?
And how often you do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's this, it goes back to just, stepping back and remembering whose story is being told right now.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's really I get to tell a story as grandmother, but I'm not
Yeah.
central to this story in front of me,
That's right.
right? I have my own story and it's over here with me, but I am not central to this family dynamic that's in front of me.
No, they're their own little unit, and you get to witness it, you get to celebrate it, and and you get to be a part in however they choose to allow you to be a part in it.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, very powerful, very powerful. So let's talk about when things in the birthing room go wrong. When the birth becomes complicated or it doesn't go the way it was planned, what helps a grandmother stay steady in all of this, but also to be supportive without trying to butt in and displace the parents who are the ones making those decisions around what's happening?
Again, I really think that if the grandmother is going to be in the birthing room, that she should have a central role in the education that goes along with it, so that we are well aware of what her role is in that room. Um, when when so a lot of time, most births, most women do not have a doula. I mean, doulas are still very new. It's a new concept to have a doula. Insurance companies are still not covering doulas. States Medicaid has just started adding doula care as something that they're covering for women who are on the margins. So if you're on state assistance, you're considered to have a higher risk, and so Medicaid is now paying for doula support. But
Hmm.
most women don't even know what a doula is still these days. But that doesn't mean that you can't have somebody on your team be your doula. And grandma could very well play the role of a doula in the birthing room. But that's something you want to know well ahead of Labor Day, if that's going to be the right relationship for grandma and mom.
So let's talk specifically. What does a birth doula do?
So as a birth doula, your number one goal is to make sure that mom's voice is being heard and that mom is being supported in getting the things that she needs. So the medical staff is taking care of all different people. Mom is not, when she's in the hospital, mom doesn't have 24-hour care, right? So
Mhm.
as a doula, my job is to usually tag team with anybody else that's on her team. And now sometimes it is just me, a single mom. I have had clients where it's just been me and the client, a single mom. I've had clients where it's been me, my client, and her mom. um, and it's deciding, it's knowing before you go into the delivery room what your role is going to be.
Mhm.
So if if grandma's going to be playing the role of the doula, her job is to make sure that mom's voice is heard
Okay.
and that mom has somebody there at her side throughout labor and birth. That means that it can be, like I said, tag teaming with dad or with another support person that might be a part of the team.
Yeah.
But a doula makes sure that mom is always being attended to.
Interesting. So yeah, because birthing can go a long time.
Birthing can go a long time.
Yeah, for my first daughter, we started early in the morning and she was not born until minutes before midnight. So it was an entire day and it's exhausting.
I
So I
labored for
think,
a weekend with my first one. So
yeah. And then for my second one, it was like 3 hours. We were done. So you never know,
it,
right?
and you don't know, and I mean, statistically, each birth is a little bit easier, a little less than the birth before, but that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen that way. And also, each subsequent baby is usually a bigger baby. So if you have a large baby the first time, they're going to warn you that subsequent babies, can tend to be bigger than the first baby. So there's different things, going forward.
Well, and also I think it would be quite a blessing to have someone who has experienced birth multiple times in the room, knowing that that person is there to support you, the birthing mom, 100%, that that's their focus. It's managing all of the details and all the things going on in the room that allow me to say what I want without me, sometimes I think we can be pressured by doctors who are experts. And at the same time, you might have an insight into what's being recommended versus what the mother wants. And you could share that with them and say, well, we could ask these questions and this might lead to a different solution, or it may be very appropriate what the doctors are
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, just real quick, since you brought that up, Laureen, one of the things that I share with all of my clients is whenever they're faced with making a decision, I like to use um, the acronym, the BRAIN acronym. So we always, whenever I have a client that's in the birthing room and a doctor is going to suggest to them an intervention, um, we want to know what the benefits. So we use the BRAIN analogy, BRAIN. What are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? Then what does your intuition say?
Okay.
And then the last thing is, what if we do nothing or not now? Can we wait?
Okay.
And I tell my clients that if they forget their brain, remember their bra, and ask the three most important questions: what are the benefits? What are the risks? And what are the alternatives?
Well, I will remember that probably till I die.
So, and it goes with them from birth all through childhood. Those are the questions you ask your pediatrician when your child is sick. Those are the questions you ask your children's educators when they have a recommendation for your child to do something different in school or what have you. You use your brain, and that gives you the opportunity to make the informed decision. And it also gives you a chance to stop and think before you make a decision.
Well, and even to remember you have choices.
Yes,
Right? In moments of stress,
that's
we
true.
sometimes don't even think that. We just feel like we have to do whatever is being told, right? And it
Right.
is, I mean, and the world has changed so much, but it really truly is a time in our history where women can create the experience they want with their birth of their
They
child.
have the power. They have the power to do that
They
today.
have the power to do that. Yeah. So, but when we get stressed out, we sometimes just forget all that and we move on. I'm sure, I would say definitely from my own experience, I learned a lot from the first birth. So when I went into the second, it was much easier because I knew what was going to happen, in general.
Right.
And I also had a stronger voice around, no, we're not doing it this way. We're doing it this way. One of the things I changed was I gave birth on my side for my second daughter. And it was
Okay.
just extraordinarily so much more comfortable for me than being on my back. And the nurses were like, "Oh no, 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 you need to lay on your back." And I'm like, "Oh no, 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 I'm not. I'm not doing that."
Good for
Then
you.
the doctor came in at the appropriate time and she said, "Nope, being on the side's totally fine. Let's do it." and we were good. And I think the nurses were a little surprised, but it was sort of like, no, I know what my body wants, and it's to lay on its side. We're not laying on my back because that ain't gonna work for me. Sorry. So yeah, you learn, but of course, especially your first birth, you don't know. It's a whole new experience
Well,
for.
yeah, it's a whole new experience. You've never done it before. And if you don't have any education and you end up having a traumatic experience, a lot of times you don't even know or have words or language to express what happened to you. And so the next time you go into it, you don't go into it, you go into it more closed off instead of being open and vocal about
Yeah.
it. So
Yes.
I encourage women, I have women that come to me that are on their second or third births because they had a traumatic experience, and I want to make sure that this time it doesn't go that
It's not
way.
that trauma. Yeah.
It's not that trauma. And I have had beautiful cesarean births, and I have had traumatic vaginal births. You
Hmm.
know, it's not how the baby enters the world. It's the energy in the room
And then
when that baby arrives.
the grandmother to be has a huge role in laying that foundation and in what I call holding the field,
Yep,
right? And not allowing it to turn into panic and chaos.
that's right.
Yeah. Good, powerful stuff. Again, I just can't, I keep thinking about how important this conversation is. So, Susan, one of the things we've talked about is how, communication is critical, and setting those boundaries around what's my role, what do you expect of me, how will I be able to support you? So, if there were like three questions that I might want to ask my daughter around how she wants support, what would I ask her? What would we talk about before the birth even happens? And it doesn't
What
have to
a
be three, but
what a good question. That's a good question. As a grandparent going in, whether it's your daughter or your daughter-in-law, I think I don't know what questions you would want to ask her until she would really need to know what she wanted. So
Mhm.
I think that one of the things that would be a good thing as a grandparent would be to ask what role she wants you to play in her birth.
Okay. And then to really listen to what she says.
And then follow her lead
Yeah. Okay. So,
and not take it personally if she doesn't want you in the room for the birth. A lot of moms don't want their mom a lot of moms, it's a very personal thing. They just want their partners to be there. Um, I've had moms join via Zoom recently. That's
mhm.
been the newest one. Moms showing up on Zoom. And I'm going to actually share this real quick because it does show how how a grandmother's presence can impact a labor and a birth. I had a mama who was going, she wanted to go medication free, and she was doing amazing. She had been in labor for about 16 hours. So it was it had been a long labor, but she was managing really well. And when she got on to the Zoom with her mom took one look at her during a contraction and said, "Baby, get the epidural. Baby, just get the epidural. What are you putting yourself through all this for? Just get the epidural."
Mhm.
And I'm encouraging and supporting mom doing such a fantastic job avoiding that epidural. And now here I am having to navigate a grandma trying to talk her daughter into doing something that she didn't want to do.
Mhm.
She ultimately got the epidural, and we went through her birth, and she was glad that she did.
Mhm.
She had a very positive experience. She was happy about the way things turned out. Her baby came out healthy. All is good. And when all was said and done, she said that she was grateful that she had gotten the epidural. She got the epidural, and the baby was born within 2 hours, which was pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Um, it could have played out so many different ways. But I asked her if her mom had not had not told her get the epidural, did she think she would have been able to go on without the epidural? And she said yes. She was not planning on doing the epidural at all. And it was only because mom broke her down that she
Mhm.
got the epidural. And now, right, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It turned out to be an okay thing for her. She had a positive experience all the way around. But if mom had not been there, she probably would not have gone the epidural route at all.
Hmm. And yet she still felt happy about what she experienced.
Yep.
So,
Overall, it was still a good experience, you
so I
know.
think, so to me,
But the
what that says
dynamic,
is you're allowed to change your mind,
absolutely.
right? Because you don't always know what you're going to be going through. And maybe just saying, baby, get the epidural would have been better said if you don't have to stick with your original plan. You can change your mind if you want that. I'm gonna guess, just from my own experiences, that it's very hard to watch someone you love go through so much pain and not want to help them.
Alleviate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is something that grandparents really need to be mindful of if they're planning on being in the labor room, if
Yeah.
mom is trying to go medication free.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need to know whether or not that's something that you're going to be capable of handling as grandma, as mom to your birthing new mom. Like you had that experience
Well,
exactly.
yeah. With my mom, she left the room because she was going to start telling people what she thought, and
Right.
she knew that was not the right thing to do. So,
Exactly.
it's you can plan, 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 but then when you're in that moment, everything can
Right.
fall apart, and you still have to, ask yourself. This is one of the things I always ask myself: who do I want to be when all of this is over with?
Yeah.
Do I want to be the mother who supported her daughter and listened to what she said, or do I want to be the mother that jumped in and tried to interfere and rescue, right? Interfere is a bad word, maybe, but rescue my daughter
Rescue.
when my
Rescue.
daughter has explicitly told me she does not want me to rescue her. She wants
Right.
me to witness, and
Exactly.
as a witness, support her. So it is, for each of us, we have to consider that and decide for ourselves and then hold ourselves to that when things are challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
interesting story. So, when you think about all that, what kind of inner work do you see grandmothers, potential grandmothers, really being invited into to learn to let go of control and trust their daughters and their families and just
Yeah.
let go of, as a woman, maybe in her 50s, 60s, whatever, what inner work does she need to do or could be doing to work on herself in preparation for these moments?
I think in most cases it really takes understanding that it's not your story, and that just bringing yourself back to that you've been invited into this story.
That is, Susan, I have to say that is one of the most powerful things I've heard in a very long time when it comes to things around family, because what you just said applies not just to the day the grandchild is born. It applies for the rest of your life as a mother-in-law, as a mother of a woman who has her own family.
Yeah.
I'm being invited into this story, but it's not my story. Yeah. Wow. And we learn that. We will learn that when we don't agree with the choice of diapers that they choose for their
Right.
grandchild. When we don't agree with whether they're nursing or they're going formula or when they go formula. When they decide what their child is going to do for school.
Right, or what time
Right.
bedtime is, or if there's a bedtime, or
Exactly. And so this is the transition. This is the the crossing we go over, the first few months of a grandchild being introduced into our lives, where we take on a new identity that
Yes,
we think life has prepared us for because we, of course, have been mothers ourselves, but we don't always recognize, but I'm not the mother.
that's right.
This is not my story. I am here as the grandmother, as the Nana, to
Yeah,
support and love this family, but not to lead them.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's not about having control or even giving advice. I mean, not that you can't give advice, but that's not what it's about. It's
Hmm.
about your presence. It's about your steady presence and knowing that you're supporting them in their decisions.
And that is a very different kind of role than we have played in the past.
Very much so.
And so it definitely requires some thought, some intention, and attention as
Yes,
we
ma'am.
evolve that relationship. Wow.
Yes, very much so.
So, if you could, this is my last question for our conversation today. If you could
Okay.
offer one grounding reminder to the woman becoming a grandmother or to the woman who already is a grandmother, what would you want her to remember?
Mm. A new baby, welcoming a new baby is laying the foundation for a new family. And we get to be the bearers of carrying that new story and honoring that new mother and that new father when they offer us that invitation to do so.
It's an invitation, right? It's
We
an
have to
invitation.
remember that. I mean, I think that's so important because it is their lives. It's their family, it's their story.
Mhm.
And we really should feel honored when we're invited to be a part of that. We shouldn't assume that it's our right to be a part of that.
That is brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for sharing your wisdom, your steadiness, your experience at a time that is so tender for us as grandmothers, but even more so for our children and their children.
Mm.
The way that you speak about birth with respect, with evidence, experience, and also just a really deep relational awareness offers such a grounded model for how grandmothers can show up in love and in humility. And I'm truly grateful for this conversation today. Thank you.
I am so grateful to have been here today. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
My pleasure. And to those of you listening and watching, thank you for being here as well. If you are stepping into grandmotherhood or you are already navigating it, I hope that this conversation reminded you that your role is not to manage the moment, it is really to study it. Your role is not to direct the experience, but rather to support it with wisdom and trust and love. This week on your next chapter, the blog, I am also going to be writing more about becoming a grandmother, not as sentiment, but as an unexpected adventure, or maybe unexpected adventure, but unexpected in the sense that it redefines your identity. There are shifts, there are unexpected emotions, there is beauty. There are quiet recalibrations, and there is much love as this season brings into our lives. And if you would like to read along, please subscribe to all of the upcoming posts through the blog. You'll find a link in the show notes to do that. Also, you will find links to connect with Susan if you are interested in learning more about her work as a birth doula. I think if you're at all curious, you definitely should click one of those links and connect. And in closing, again, thank you all for listening. As always, this is Unscripted and Unstoppable, conversations for women 50 and older who are navigating the thresholds of becoming. Until next time, my friends, stay curious, stay steady, and trust in the season that you are in. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.